All right, everyone, welcome back. I was thinking about this before we got started today, and it's like we talk a lot about wanting insights into our businesses,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And with Oracle CPQ, it's always felt like we get some data, but it's like not always the right data?
I know exactly what you mean.
But good news, everyone. Today's deep dive is all about Oracle CPQ's latest metrics overhaul, and let me tell you, this is like getting a peek behind the curtain. We're talking about their own documentation on how they track and present the data on how businesses actually use CPQ.
And this is big because it really changes the game. We're not talking about a simple visual refresh here. This is a fundamental shift, especially for anyone who's used to the old My Account portal for their metrics.
Yeah, so it's safe to say Oracle's kind of doing a out with the old, in with the new approach here, right?
Absolutely. 100%. Version 24D and onward. It's all about in-app downloads for your metrics. And while that might sound simple, believe me, this has huge implications. It changes how your teams access the data, how you compare historical trends. We're even talking about potential workflow redesigns here. This is big stuff.
Wow, Oracle's not messing around, are they? They're really ripping off the Band-Aid here. But hey, better to know now than later about. So let's get into the details. What kind of metrics are we actually getting with this update?
So Oracle's broken it down into four, I guess you could say, categories. We've got API metrics, which are basically your health check for integrations. Are you really using those connections to their full potential? This tracks things like license usage, how active your e-commerce integrations are, even how much storage you're using.
I love this already because it's not just about seeing numbers, it's about understanding what they mean, right? Are you getting the most out of your CPQ investment, or are there untapped opportunities hiding in plain sight?
That's it. And speaking of opportunities, the next category is login metrics. Now you're going to think, okay, logins, how exciting. But this is about more than just how many users you have. This breaks it down. Internal teams versus partners, active users versus just licensed users.
Whoa, hold on. You're saying I could see if we're paying for, say, 100 licenses, but only 50 are actually being used? That's huge for cost optimization. Talk about a compelling reason to dig into these metrics.
Music to my ears. Now let's move on to the heart of CPQ, the quotes themselves. Oracle calls this section, appropriately, quoting metrics.
So we're talking about data on how many quotes are being generated, who's creating them, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It gives you a pulse on the overall quoting activity happening within your business. But it gets even better.
Okay, you got to give me the good stuff. I'm guessing we're going to see data on how fast those quotes are getting created because we all know time is money, especially in sales.
You read my mind. That's where quoting performance metrics come into play. This is like putting your quoting process under a microscope.
Ooh, I'm wearing my lab coat. So we'll see how long it actually takes to create a quote, any bottlenecks in the process. That's critical information because a clunky, slow quoting process can be a deal breaker in a competitive market.
Absolutely. Speed and efficiency are key.
This is amazing stuff. But how do we actually get our hands on all this data? Is it hard to find?
You're in luck because Oracle actually made this part pretty straightforward. They've got step-by-step instructions for downloading all these metrics as CSV files.
CSV files, okay. I mean, I get it. It's the standard, but
Mm.
I can already feel some eyes glazing over out there. Let's be honest, CSV files aren't exactly the most thrilling thing to look at.
Totally. But here's the thing. Think of those CSVs as like raw ingredients. They might not be much to look at on their own, but with a little know-how, you can turn them into something truly delicious.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Keep going. What kind of culinary magic are we talking about here?
You can open them up in Excel, obviously, but the real fun starts when you bring in data visualization tools. Think dashboards, custom reports, charts that make those numbers sing.
Ah, now you're speaking my language. Suddenly, we're not just crunching numbers in a spreadsheet. We're data artists painting a masterpiece of business intelligence.
I love that analogy. It
Yeah.
is so true because it's one thing to just track these metrics, but the real value is in using them to make smart, informed decisions, right?
Absolutely. This is where the rubber meets the road. Are your sales cycles mysteriously getting longer? Are your partners not quite as engaged as you'd hoped? Well, these metrics, they give you the hard data to back up your observations and figure out solutions.
Exactly. No more relying on gut feelings or guesswork.
Mhm.
You walk into that meeting with data-driven insights to back up your recommendations. That's powerful stuff.
That's the power of a good deep dive. But before we get too carried away with our newfound data wizardry, I do remember there being like a couple of caveats in the documentation, that fine print we always have to watch out for. Ah, yes, the fine print. Always important. So, The first one has to do with those quoting performance metrics, the ones that show how quickly your team is creating quotes. Turns out those are only available if you have application logging and response time logging enabled in your CPQ environment.
Classic Oracle. Always a little gotcha in there. But hey, at least we know, right? Knowledge is power.
Exactly. You might have to reach out to Oracle support to get those features turned on, but once they are, you'll have access to a goldmine of information on your quoting speed.
Consider that call made. What was the second caveat?
This one's interesting and kind of touches on data transparency. The documentation is very clear that those download links for the metrics, they're only available to users with, like, full admin access.
So regular users, team members who are actually doing the quoting, they won't have access to this data. That seems, I don't know, a little restrictive. Right. It definitely raises some questions about like data transparency within organizations. I mean, on one hand, you want to give your teams the insights they need. But then there's the whole other side of things, like maybe there are legitimate reasons to restrict access to certain sensitive data.
It's a tough balance for sure, and probably a conversation every organization needs to have internally. Who needs access to what, and how do we make sure everyone has the information they need to succeed without, accidentally causing chaos?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Makes you think, though, like, how do we make this data work for everyone? Because knowledge is great, but it's how you use it that really matters, right?
Couldn't agree more. It's like Oracle's given us the map of
Yeah.
all the routes to these powerful metrics it's laid out,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not telling us which direction to go. That's up to us.
I like that. It's like they've handed us the keys to a high-performance race car. We could just, keep it in the garage, admire it, maybe track some data about its
We
horsepower.
could take it out on the track, see what it can really do.
Exactly. Push it to its limits, collect the data from those test runs, and use that to become a better driver.
Now you're getting it. It's not enough to just have the data. It's about what you do with it.
Exactly. So, to our listeners out there, as you navigate these Oracle CPQ changes, here's the deep dive challenge for you. Don't just track these metrics, use them. Use them to make real improvements in your business.
Make your processes faster, make them more efficient, become more competitive. That's what this is all about.
That's the power of a good deep dive and the power of really understanding your data. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.